Yo, 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 what is up? I'm Kuma Akemi, and this is going to be my closing thoughts on this arc, the Sabaody uh, one. I don't think I am saying it right. That's why I tried to never have to say it up until this point. But it looks like the next two episodes that are filler are actually separated out in Netflix, and so, yeah, I now know that we're going to go into a new arc. So, therefore, I had to do closing thoughts. I have a lot, but I figured it would be best to kind of split it all up, have a general overall feeling, and then kind of maybe go over the arc from the start to the finish, so to speak, and what I thought of all of it. But pretty much, I liked it. It was really short. I put it in my little handy dandy notebook here. Sasuke. Anyways, it was of course way better than Foxy's as far as like short arcs go. I think that's a low bar though, because good golly, those episodes were terrible. Hard to believe they weren't filler, but they were there for a reason. I can see that and say that now. It showed, how important the crew was to Luffy and vice versa, and how much they were willing to fight for each other. And even Robin, that was pre Ennis Lobby. So yeah, overall, I actually had this thought the other day when I was kind of talking about it with my roommate, and I feel a lot like this is like season 2 of Game of Thrones almost. And I'm not going to spoil Game of Thrones really, other than just like it's when you're suddenly hit with a bunch of new characters and you realize the world is so much bigger. And that's kind of where season 2 of Game of Thrones is for me. And this arc kind of was like a smack to the face and just like made me take a step back and look at where we've been and where we've come and like where we're going, and realize how much is there is in this world other than just like this tiny little crew. It's not just the Mugiwaras, going out there and trying to find the One Piece. It's like the whole world literally versus them at this point, I think, the world just keeps getting in our way. It's not that Luffy's trying to pick a fight with everybody. It's just that he wants to do and go and do things, and if you get in his way, he will make you move. So, yeah, and it's actually kind of weird. I think I like this more than Thriller Bark. And by think, I mean, I'm pretty sure 100% I enjoy this more. Even though that arc went on forever and it had a lot of characters in it and it had a lot going on, it felt like it was way too long. It didn't need to be that long. And it's just like it felt stretched, even though there was some really good stuff at the end of it. This, it just like, it was like bam, bam, boom, hitting you with more and more new things, more characters to be introduced, more twists about the government and all that, and, slavery. Oh my gosh, like that's crazy. So, overall, yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit more than Thriller Bark. So, going into the actual arc, I think in introducing everything through Duval was kind of fun. We meet Cammy, the mermaid, and her master and pet starfish Papagu, or I think it's just Papag, but they can't say a hard G, so it's goo, Papag. But we meet them, and then of course through them we're reunited with Hachi. Never thought that was gonna be happening. Uh, and through that, we get to Duvall and we touch on the whole slavery issue, which up until this point I thought wasn't an issue. Like, I thought it was past tense in the past slavery, Ooh, ooh. Got hit with our first screensaver. I gotta remember to scroll with this. Yeah, so slavery, crazy, right? uh, and the whole twist about the wanted poster and it being Sanji's like some guy in the world actually looking like the bad drawing is truly the cream on the cake here. But it actually makes me wonder, like, how can that happen? Like, I feel like there's somebody pulling strings in a sense, because I've said it before and I say it again. The government has not had a single like clear shot of Sanji's face, and I feel like there is something there, like some past before Zeph. But I know he was so super young, but like he's like a little secret agent or something, you know? Like maybe he's a sleeper agent or something for the government. Oh, dude, that'd be crazy. Well, I'm going on a tangent at this point, but the Duval stuff was fun, and we ended up going to we ended up going to Bubble Island. I'm not gonna keep trying to say that word and butcher it every time. And at Bubble Island, we meet Jackie. We're introduced to the concept of her missing husband, who is the guy who's supposed to coat our ship to make it so we can go to Mermaid Island. And so there's like this extra little, story where it's like, okay, he's missing. We got to go find him. He could be in a couple different locations. Luffy automatically wants to go to the fair because why not? Obviously, that's the coolest place ever. And that's when Cammy gets mermaid napped. And we get into the whole slave stuff a little bit more. And by a little bit more, I mean like, holy crap. I thought the government was pretty bad and complicit in some stuff before, but I didn't realize it was so obvious. Like we even have a Marine slip up and he's like, "Yo, some crazy some crazy stuff is happening at the slave house. I mean, the what did they call it? I think I wrote it down somewhere. Well, he called it like an employment office. That was it." And I'm like, dude, that is so messed up. Which also kind of makes me wonder a bunch of stuff about that. Like, uh, do they have to confiscate slaves outside of the Bubble Island area if it's not a celestial dragon? Because there were other people in the audience, not celestial dragons, who just were like, I guess, really rich people who wanted slaves. And I imagine, like, if you're in the island area, where, well, I keep calling it an island, but it's a bunch of trees, but you know what I mean. If you're in the bubble place, then you just get like a freebie. But like if you just take your slave somewhere else and you're not a celestial dragon, do you get arrested for it? And does that slave get free? Or do you have like a pass? Like once you own a slave, you therefore can have it elsewhere. It's that's dark, dark, man. Let's see, what have we done now? Yes. Oh, and through that, of course, we end up getting Luffy punching a celestial dragon because you hype those guys up, you make them super special. You're like, dude, they could walk on your face and you're not supposed to say anything about it. You just need to let it happen. And then Luffy stomps through and he sees that Hachi's getting mistreated by the folks in the auction house, and then he punches the celestial dragon. That was absolutely beautiful. And there's like that whole side stuff about like all these new characters that have been introduced in this bubble place, where they're all new and upcoming pirates, kind of like Luffy. And we have a list of them. I took it previously when they were doing all their bounties, but I figured I should go down the list now and see if we think that they're still alive or not, considering what happened or not. So we got Capone, Gangbaji, not to be it just sounds like gangbang. I'm sorry, that's just the way it's going to be for me. Who's got 136 mil. That's pretty impressive. I think he's okay. He had a weird devil fruit power, paramecia, I think, just based off the type it is. And I say type very loosely because I don't think you can have a Logia or say a Zoan that allows tiny people to live inside of you. And I don't really know if those are real people or if those are like part of him or what's going on with that. Oh no, Paddington, no. Let's see, we got Jewelry Bonnie, and she has some sort of like age changing devil fruit, and very interesting. 140 mil. I think she's okay. She seemed to have no problem escaping and wiping out everybody with her powers. Then we had Basil Hawkins, the magician, who's worth 249 mil, I think. My handwriting's a little bad on this page. And I don't know if he is dead because he read his cards. He said he wasn't fated to die that day. Granted, he got his butt handed to him, but right when he was about to get lasered, somebody showed up and interrupted. So I don't know if he escaped, or if maybe he was or still arrested and maybe, that's a problem or what. I don't know. And then we have Apu, the Roar of the Sea, with 100 worth 198. Now, I thought that guy was ridiculous. He was the guy who had the instrument parts for his body, and I think he got his butt handed to him. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Then we got Captain Kidd, 315 mil, and his friend Killer, the Massacre Soldier, for 162 mil. I think that Kidd's crew, and I'm pretty sure Killer is on his crew just because they were interacting that way. I think that they both got away, or it seems like they did. Granted, they were going up against a second PX model of Kuma by the end of the last episode we watched, but they seem to be handling themselves pretty well. And they were also hanging out with Law, the Surgeon of Death, who was worth 200 mil, and his Kung Fu Bear, Bepo. Love that bear. And oh yeah, Law picked up a guy who was there. I didn't get his name written down, but he was a former captain who was actually up for sale. No. Was he up for sale, or was he being used by the Celestials as a slave already? I honestly, yeah, he was already being used as a slave, and Law busted him out using his really weird powers. Like, seriously. Okay, I forgot to mention the powers of the other guy. Kidd, magnets, I guess. Like, he just draws metal to him, which is very cool. The way he was using it in the fight was beautiful. So, good for him. He's not my favorite. He reminds me of a Disney villain, just the way he looks. But hey, all the power to him. Killer, I don't think has the power. I think he's like essentially the Zoro to Luffy that only essentially to kids, so to speak. I think he's a swordsman. And then where were we? Oh yeah, we got Red Flag, the ex Drake guy. I think he's a goner. He got shot pretty bad by a laser when he was in dinosaur form. Dinosaur Zoan. That's pretty epic. So I don't think he survives, or if so, he's probably gone to the prison place. Wow, we're gonna touch on that prison place in a little bit, but hey, the people I think got away: Capone guy, Bonnie, Kidd, Killer, Law, and Bepo. I'm including Bepo. He's not on on the bounty list, but he was so cool. Oh yes, and because Luffy punches the Celestial Dragons, we get an admiral to show up, and that's Kizaru. And my gosh, that guy is so annoying. Like, oh, I talk like so annoying. Like, I can't even do him, man. I can't do him justice. But his power is insane. The power of light. The only way that they were even able to do a single like physical thing to him was when Rayleigh stepped in, and he was using, I think, hockey. Like honestly, I got like a theory about hockey, because like they're just like kind of introducing it like very gradually, and at first it's just like, I think it was just like, okay, you're using it to intimidate people or whatever, but then they have this, like they pointed out a couple times now, it's just like you can't touch a Logia person. Oh, Paddington, no, you can't touch a Logia person necessarily when they're using their powers. But Luffy found a way to touch Crocodile using water and blood, which was like an element or whatever. And then when Rayleigh is the first physical thing that actually can touch Kizaru after like Usopp's been shooting at him and Brook has been trying to stab at him, I think that he's using a similar power where it's essentially like having water or blood on his hands and touching Crocodile, where he is able to touch a Logia user. So that's my theory. Yeah. Oh, and props. And while I'm talking about hockey, I was gonna bring it up later, but honestly, just say power to Luffy and to Zoro both for being able to use it. We got Luffy intimidating a bull that was owned by Duval, and he didn't even know what he was doing. He's just like, it's not. It's a waste of time to mess with you. Essentially, is what he said. And the bull was like, "Whoa," and then passed out. And I think Zoro had a similar issue at the auction house or right before the auction house, where essentially people were going to attack him, and then he just intimidated the crap out of them. Super cool. It's like opening up a whole new world of powers. Now that Kizaru joined in, and I got over the fact, well, let's be honest, I didn't get over the fact he's annoying. But once he was introduced, we kind of find out that he's actually trying to meet up with his nephew, who I struggle with the name. Not Shikamaru, it's Sentomaru. And Sentomaru is a scientist, a beefy scientist with an axe, who I believe works with Vegapunk, because the PX models of Kuma seem to be taking orders from him. And also, he mentioned someone, and subtitles are so unreliable for me because I don't know what to trust sometimes as far as like the person who is subtitling it. Like when they subtitle Gold Roger as Gold D Roger, even though the character is saying Gold Roger. So I don't know exactly, but it seemed like Sentomaru was referring to somebody and calling them that punk in relation to his line of work. And I didn't know, I wasn't thinking much of it at the time, but when I was editing it, I was thinking maybe he's referring to Vegapunk. So that's why I think he works with Vegapunk. That, and they also established that Kuma was a pet project of Vegapunk in like the Thriller Bark arc or whatever. So that's a little worrisome. And of course, we get, in essence, 4 copies of a warlord running around taking orders from the nephew of an admiral. I don't know if he's actually, I'm assuming he's part of the Marines, but he's technically not wearing a uniform at all. Even the admirals have to wear a coat. So, yeah, I don't know. If you're a scientist, maybe it's kind of like Star Trek where you have a different outfit you wear or something. But yeah, 4 copies of a warlord taking orders from the Marines, technically, which actually kind of leans towards like why I think Kuma might be doing something. The actual Kuma might be working against them somehow, because before he essentially sends everybody in the Straw Hats everywhere in the world, I guess, 3 days and 3 nights kicking and screaming through the air, I'm guessing. He said that he had his own concerns that he needed to worry about when Rayleigh was asking if he could trust him. And I think he whispered something additional to Rayleigh. The editing was a little iffy on that, but maybe we'll find out. I don't know. But needless to say, when the PXs were finally starting to beat the crap out of our crew and Kizaru joined in, oh my gosh, oh man, I can't gloss over that. Zoro, who was still not completely healed from Thriller Bark, got his butt handed to him so terribly, and he was shot by Kizaru. The whole the whole bit with Sanji. Oh my god! Like seriously, just thinking about it actually is like killing me inside. Just like they have come such a long way as crew members. Paddington, you're killing the mood, and to just be like, to see Sanji throwing himself at Kuma's legs and just like grabbing him when he physically didn't have the strength to keep kicking, and to be dragged behind him, and just his last ditch effort to stop him from getting at Zoro. Oh my god. Like, I don't even know how to unpackage that. It's just like, oh my god. I really feel like Sanji's kind of come undone since Thriller Bark, in a sense. Like, he was so ready to sacrifice himself that I think when Zoro took that from him, it really left him with like a different, I don't know, like a different like a view of Zoro, and also like maybe just feeling like he owes him even more, which is not healthy either. Like, friends don't help friends to hold it against them later and to keep points, you know? But I feel like Sanji is someone who always wants to earn his keep, and that might be a part of it. But that whole bit with Zoro, and I think like that really, that and Nami disappearing got me the strongest, like in the heart. It was like a gut punch almost too, you know. It's just like seeing him go after all them fighting to save him, and then one by one they pop away, and then when it comes to Nami and she literally is repeating the line from Arlong Park where she's saying, Luffy help me, and she disappears and he can't. It's just like, oh, I don't know what this is gonna do to Luffy. Like, Luffy essentially knows, and I think Robin, because she was next to him, because and may have overheard Sentomaru explain Kuma's theoretical powers. But if he actually throws people 3 days and 3 nights in whatever direction, the other people are gonna freak the F out and not really understand what happened. But at least Luffy knows that they're not, or, well, he doesn't know for sure. He just knows that there's a chance that they're not dead. And man, talk about bad time to have your crew ripped apart. When meanwhile, we've got that issue with Ace. I have a whole page about Ace. Let me just tell you. A whole page about Ace. But so we had Blackbeard capture him, essentially, I guess. I mean, he defeated him in a fight, and it was established via newspaper that they're going to be executing him, and it's been hypothesized that this is going to be a big bad thing because obviously he's the second division leader of Whitebeard, I believe. I think the first division leader was Marco. We were introduced to him in the episode where Shanks like rolled up on them and said hey and used his hockey on half the crew. Speaking of hockey. But yeah, so this is interesting because I also think Garp kind of was mentioning this without mentioning it when he was like, do you really want to go up against two big problems at once? Because the Marines learned about Rayleigh being essentially in a slave auction house, and they're like, should we go mess with that? And he's like, nah man, nah, do you really want to mess with somebody else? And I didn't know, of course, at the time I was thinking it wouldn't have been Ace that Garp was necessarily referencing, because again, Garp was just so nonchalant about the whole thing. But I think he was referring to Whitebeard in general, which is also a little disconcerting that he was so nonchalant about it, because Ace's family in some sort of way. He might not be blood family, but he is literally like Luffy's bro. And I Garp has got to know that, right? Because Garp has been around with Luffy since he was a kid. But then again, we actually still don't know when, like, how Ace and Luffy are related either. Like, maybe they didn't meet until later in Luffy's childhood, and therefore maybe it was when Garp wasn't around, because obviously Garp wasn't around all the time because he wasn't there when Shanks was hanging out at the party bar with the bandits and stuff, you know? Like, he wasn't around for that, so who's to say if he even knows about Ace and Luffy's connection? In which case, dang, I feel like the Marines, Paddington, the Marines are trying to do some sort of government marine moves here, because they essentially are operating against the emperors of the New World that we learned about previously at the end of Enies Lobby. They are teamed up with, of course, the Seven Warlords. So it's essentially Seven Warlords and the Marines versus the Emperors. And Whitebeard is one of the Emperors. And we know that the Emperors tend to not get along with each other. There was all that, hubbub about Shanks trying to communicate with the Whitebeard, and that was a huge thing or whatever. So maybe the Marines are trying to lure them out one at a time and basically wipe them out. And in which case, having Ace would be a good way to do that, I'm guessing. I don't know how Whitebeard is about. Well, no, I can't say that. I mean, generally speaking, I could say that we haven't seen enough of a character to know about them, but we've heard enough about Whitebeard and the importance of the crew. And that's why Ace was out looking for Blackbeard in the first place, was because Blackbeard killed a crew member and he needed to pay for it. So I feel like the fact that there's a crew member now being held and who's going to be executed, I feel like that's going to cause some problems. The issue is, will Whitebeard act on it alone, and will that allow the government to get him? Like, that guy's a big dude, but there's no denying that every time we see him, he's hooked up to some sort of medical machine and has a whole bunch of sexy nurses with him. So he's got some issues, like at least some. I was thinking, right when we learned that Ace was, in trouble, that at some point Luffy and the crew would go after him. But after seeing the crew get torn apart, literally, I'm thinking we actually might get, like, maybe we'll have some, like, spin-off episodes, kind of like when we see Buggy go on adventures or something, right? Like, or when we had 2 episodes that were about Kobe and we didn't really have much of the main crew. Like, maybe we will actually see it happening from the point of view of the Whitebeard pirates or something. Like, that would be interesting. I don't know how they would go about that, but as long as somebody is doing the rescuing of Ace, I'm completely fine with it. I don't know how our crew is going to get back together anytime soon, because the time it takes to travel around this giant world in the first place is ridiculous. And they were at it for months, almost, like, I think someone in the comments said people hypothesized that up to this point it's been about 6 months that the Straw Hat crew have been like sailing together, in which case it took them that long to get to where they are. And just imagine if they're flung to various parts of the world, how long, like, even if you have the Vivre card thing that Rayleigh gave them to, like, basically trace back to him, they would have to essentially travel the world to get there. And that's really depressing thinking about that. Like, I don't I'm trying to be positive, but I'm trying to also be realistic about, like, how realistic it is that our crew will actually be able to get back together, at least and wholly. Like, I feel like, how would you? Oh man, I don't want to get depressed thinking about that. So I'll just say that I'm feeling a little down, much like Luffy probably is feeling right now. So while we're on the page of Ace still, I wanted to briefly go over the list of the 7 warlords, or the ones that we're aware of, or basically their current standings, right? So, like, obviously I got Mihawk as number 1 because Mihawk is number 1. Then we got I put Blackbeard only because he essentially is taking the place of Crocodile, and Crocodile was number 2 on the list in our head originally. So we got Blackbeard now. Then we have Don Flamingo, and that guy is actually, I'm so slow and annoyed because all throughout that slave house there was a pirate, Jolly Roger, showing up, and I was thinking it kind of looked familiar, but I swear to God, there's so many of them in One Piece. Like, they blur together to me. But Paddington, it essentially was, yeah, it was essentially was Don Flamingo's, and he was running the slave auction house, and he also is, if you trace all the way back to it, Bellamy was on his crew also, and I think that he totally kicked Bellamy's butt at the end of that arc, thankfully. Then we also got Kuma, who was our more recent introduction. we know more about him than we do about Don Flamingo at this point, I think, which isn't very much. He's just a big guy who likes to carry a Bible around and repel people with his paw fruit and act against the government. Honestly, yeah, that isn't much. Then we have Gecko Moria, who we totally whooped. He will say he's on medical leave right now with the government, but he's still technically classified as a warlord because they don't want the title to lose meaning when people realize how quick they're getting snuffed out by Luffy and his crew. And then there are technically two more positions, and we haven't seen them, I don't think, in the anime, but I know in the live action, I don't remember if it's mentioned in the anime, but I know in the live action in season 1, they mention that there is a fishman who is a warlord of the sea. His name is Jinbei. And so I'm actually kind of hoping that at some point, whenever we get to Mermaid Land, we might actually be able to meet Jinbei. I'm assuming, he's out there somewhere doing fisherman stuff and being a warlord. Seems interesting considering how cool the Marines are with slavery and him being a warlord, therefore working with them, kind of, like, what's up with that? And the last role, I have no idea. Like, I don't think that they've dropped any clues for who that would be for the warlords. But all of those people versus the emperors, who at this point we know that Shanks is one, we know that Whitebeard is another, and there were two other faces in the episode that was explaining this that I don't think had names attached to them at this point. But I'm wondering if one of those faces is Kaido, because Kaido is a name that's been name dropped a couple times as being someone that Gecko Moria came across and got his butt whooped by, and that Kaido is in the New World. And anybody that badass has got to be somebody badass enough that I'm guessing might be an emperor. So I think I might know 3 of the 4 of the emperors, but just those 4 versus the Marines and the 7 warlords of the sea. That is such a crazy dynamic. Like, see, if you watched Game of Thrones, you know what I mean when I say this is like season 2, right? All right. Oh yeah, and I was wondering what is up with Garp. That was the lasting question I had. He said once they figured out about Rayleigh that he would handle it because he didn't think that the whole, like, a bunch of Marines going up against him was a good idea, and because he was so strong. But Garp never showed up. And I'm thinking if it might have been because of Luffy. Because Luffy punched a celestial dragon and brought an admiral there. There wasn't plans for the admiral to be there, I don't think, until that happened. And maybe Garp was taking his time. Or maybe Garp was just saying he would do something about it, and then he just decided to twiddle his thumbs and forget about it because he is a lazy guy. I don't know. I don't know much about his personality at all, honestly. He likes donuts, though. I still admire him for that. I would totally like to do a contest with myself to see how many donuts I can eat in a day. I'm going to try that one day. Powder jelly filled donuts. Yeah. Okay. Chopper. Honorary mention again. I am so upset that we didn't get some sort of closure with him turning into a monster from the end of Ennis Lobby. They were like, "Oh, we'll touch on that later," and then we don't in the show. And then Robin alludes to the fact that she's heard about the event, but only after he's popped 3 more Rumble Balls because he is so distraught and he's seen his whole family get torn up. And he feels like he can't do anything. Like, I mean, instantly it's like, I can totally tell that's what his mindset is, right? But the problem is that he did it again. Like, I mean, he knows he can't control it. Like, is at that point, is that just like a berserk button? Like, he is fully aware he is pushing a berserk button? He has to be, right? Like, he's like, okay, I'm going to hit this button, hope I blow up everything that's bad, and that my homies will be good with me. Like, man, that was very upsetting to see him do that again, because that boy needs to treat himself better in the first place and know that he is a doctor. he doesn't have to be a fighter. And he he does so much for the crew as it is, you know, and the fact that he just wants to keep stepping up and do something better, you know, and bigger and prove himself. And it's just like somebody needs to sit him down and say, like, boy, you don't need to. Please. Like, be our lovable doctor who likes cotton candy. Don't be a giant beast who just goes berserk mode and like hits everything. Like he was almost hitting Robin and Luffy a few times. That was very bad. I will not be defeated by you, Paddington. I just don't know what the heck our crew is going to do and how they're going to come back together. If they're going to come back together, even. The show is so big, there's so many people. Maybe we won't get a full original crew again. Like, that's truly my biggest fear right now. And I don't want to think about it because I'm only like 400 some odd episodes in, and there's over 1,000 episodes. Like, can I be positive and lovable and like hopeful enough to think that everybody will be okay and still on the crew by 1,000 episodes? I mean, even Luffy is just in despair right now. It's hard for me to feel that way. Maybe when I see Luffy smile again, I will feel a little bit better. But until that time, man, that was a real rough finale, and I cannot even imagine what it would have been like to be watching the anime when this stuff was like coming out and you had to wait to find out what happened. Oh my gosh. I feel for y'all. Like, seriously, I'm glad I waited. I hope y'all come back. There will be another reaction tomorrow, and it'll be the new arc. I'm making a point to not read below the list, so I don't know what that arc is gonna be. And yeah, well, hopefully it'll be my crew magically gets back together ASAP because my heart can't take it arc. Yeah. Until then, I bid y'all adieu.